Okay, it looks like most everyone has had the chance to join. I want to thank everyone for being here today. Region 10 Education Service Center and Partners Resource Network are happy to welcome you today to our family webinar. Today's topic is improving communication in children with special needs, and we have Dr. Mehta with us today from the Region 10 Education Service Center. And at this time, I am going to turn things over to her.
Thank you so very much for having me, and thank you so very much for joining. It's a cold day in just about all parts of Texas, and so thank you. I hope you are warm and comfortable in front of your screen. So, as when Sarah asked me to do a presentation for the session, and I said, well, what would you like me to talk about? And because I can talk about all of these things all day till the cows come home. And she said, just focus on how to improve, because I'm a speech language pathologist by training. So like, let's focus on how to improve communication with kids with special needs. And uh, kids with special needs almost always need some help with supporting their overall speech language and communication. So let's go ahead and get started. See, so the question always comes up is, what exactly is communication? And communication can be a lot of different things. It can be verbal, of course, what I'm doing right now. I'm communicating about the need for communication in special needs kiddos. So communication can be verbal, communication can be written, right? We write to communicate as well. Communication can be gestural. You can use gestures. Communication can be signed. There are signed languages in a structured language, sign languages like American Sign Language. All of that is communication. Communication can also be facial expressions, all the various ways in we communicate. So communication refers to the exchange of messages through an interaction between two people at least, when usually a speaker and a listener. And for the most part, we learn how to communicate in early years, primarily through oral mode. Before we learn to write, we learn how to talk. And when we use oral speech, and oral speech is just a verbal tool for conveying oral language. And language is that whole big structure of knowledge, of words, rules involving syntax and grammar, and we communicate meaning from one person to another. Language we can communicate with one word, or we can communicate through the entire Shakespearean monologue, right? So there are different ways to use language, and every language has its own set of rules. So for example, in English, we have like subject, verb, object. I am talking, right? And then in other languages of the world, let's say in Spanish, the rules may be different. You may have I talking am. That a verb can sometimes comes at the end of the sentence, but that is perfectly okay. That's the rule of that language. So that's what we mean by use of rules involving syntax, grammar, and so forth. So that is all part of communication. And if you think about it, that's a lot of things to learn. As a lot of things going on in those little brains. When we were little, we learned all of these things, and our kids are learning as well. But there are ways to really support communication, regardless of where they are in the overall communication spectrum. The number one way we can support communication is by modeling. Everybody learns language by looking at what is happening in the environment. I learned my language from the modeling that was happening, that modeling that was done by my parents. You learned likely the same way, right? So all the modeling that is happening in the environment makes a big difference. And we encourage parents and caregivers all the time, say things out loud. If the child is doing an action, tell them what that action is sometimes, and even if it's sometimes, kids may pick up things that are incorrect, that's okay. We provide the correct, appropriate model. So model, model, model. And over a period of time, we work on expanding words and phrases. So you say, you're leaving, the kiddo goes bye-bye, and you goes, yes, bye-bye, mommy, bye-bye, daddy. Let's say bye-bye to grandma or grandpa or uncle or aunt. We expand the words. Whatever they're saying, we add at least another word, or depending on where they are, maybe 2 or 3 words to expand their overall communication process. The other big one, communication is all about back and forth, right? So sometimes turn taking is a concept that needs to be explained. Many times you'll come across situations where, the child is talking, and kids love to talk, right? Or the kids love to talk about things that are of interest to them, or do things that are of interest to them. Even if they're not talking, could be a charade. Like, think about you're playing a charade. There has to be the concept of back and forth. So we have to teach them sometimes that, okay, it could be something as simple as, use your hand. You keep a hand on, my turn, your turn, my turn, your turn, for them to understand this whole concept of back and forth. Or it could be, it could be an object. If you're sitting in a group, if you're having a family night, I can have a little ball in my hand and say, okay, it's mommy's turn to talk. And then I pass it on to, it's now your turn to talk. So the rule of the game is whoever has the ball is their turn to talk. So this is the way they can understand this back and forth, because communication is very much about this back and forth. And responding to the child's efforts to communicate. In my opinion, all communication is good communication, especially if they're having communication challenges. So if they are responding with I asked the child a question, and the child responded with just a head nod. Okay, if it's a yes and no question, and he does not say yes, or he does not say no, but just uses a gesture like head nod, like or just maybe a little sound, I will accept that, because that is how we do it, right? It's more naturalistic communication. There are times when, we do head nods and we just say, sure. We respond with just one word. And that is, if the child does that, because remember, the child might have picked that up through somebody else's modeling, accept that. So I will, and I said, yeah, you're saying, and if he does say just head nod, I said, oh, is that a yes? Do you really, really want it? Sort of reiterate and, make sure that is what the child is trying to communicate. And then perhaps, prompting them to obtain more complex language in terms of, instead of saying, yeah, or just a head nod, you can prompt them. So it's like, is this what you really want? Yes. And then a lot of times you get the response of yes. So these are some of the ways you can help the child support and jumpstart some of those communication processes. And one very important thing is, like I said, everything we learn in early childhood is, before we learn to read and write and all of that, language is learned through our senses. We engage the world through our eyes and ears and touch and, actions and movements and so forth. So a lot of times we have to talk to our children. And one easy way to do that is when link an object and activity they're engaged in with words and actions. So for example, they ask apple. They want to eat an apple. So I will hold an apple. You want to eat an apple? This is an apple. You want to eat it? And so I am linking the words. First of all, I'm reaffirming that this is, and telling him this is an apple. And I'm reaffirming that he really wants an apple. And then I have put a sentence along with it. You want to eat an apple? Here's an apple. And so that's back and forth that we went back and forth, the turn taking that we engaged in. Perhaps he just wants to bite into an apple. That's, oh, you just want to bite into an apple? Or do you want me to cut it? Do you want slices? It's linking words and action to object and activity, makes some of these things concrete, because language can be very abstract. And so say he wants to just bite into it and doesn't want it cut, like reaffirm that. Oh, you're biting into the apple. Is that yummy? Having that back and forth conversation. Or maybe after one bite, he doesn't want it, or he's having difficulty biting into it. Here, let me slice it for you. Let me cut it. And talk about the cutting. Look, this is a knife and an apple. I'm cutting it. I'm cutting the apple. You want 2 slices, 4 slices? So as you can see, we are expanding the child's vocabulary. They are very much engaged, likely, mainly because they really want to eat the apple. And so even if they do not respond back to the word cut or slice or things like that, receptively, all this is happening in the brain, and all of this, the language eventually will stick and help you understand what this all means. And one important thing, I think, is to provide choices. Choices make a big difference in the overall communication process as well. Choices of let them choose what they want to wear. Let them choose within reason, what they want to eat, or especially toys to play with, or the book they want to read. It helps children feel, get a sense of more control over their environment, and that they can choose, that they can do things because it was their choice. And sometimes we have a great outcome in terms of, even if, when I was raising my children, if I gave them a choice, I have less of tantrums. If they choose a something from the menu, the likelihood of them eating the whole thing was a lot more higher, compared to, I know they really like a particular item from the menu, but because I chose it, there is a possibility that they may not want to eat, and so that choice is, I think, really, really important. Let them choose the books they want to read, especially, and that is a nighttime activity I highly encourage you to engage in. It doesn't have to be even at night, anytime. Read a book at least once or twice a day. At least once a day, and let the child pick the book. When with my children, they pick the same book every single day. Both my daughter's favorite book was My Mama Was a Llama. You may have heard of that. And I got so bored reading that book every single day. But that's okay. They are showing that interest. I would read the book, and then over a period of time, what I would do is I would read My Mama Is a Llama, and then I would read a book of my choice. We'll read this, and we'll read another one. So now we are expanding the overall repertoire. So when we provide those choices, the children are learning not only to make decisions, but they're also developing some of those inner narratives. Sometimes we call self-talk. So when we read My Mama Was a Llama, I knew the book pretty much, verbatim, and both my kids knew that. So if I miss a word, or if I skip a sentence, they would catch, hey, no, you missed that. And part of that is also helping them understand some of those inner narratives in terms of asking questions. Why is sometimes I like, mommy's bored reading the book. Why do you think mommy's bored reading the book? And sometimes they would talk back, mommy is bored. Why is mommy bored? Because we've been doing this every single day. Can we think of another book to read? What book shall we read? How about Three Little Pigs? Those kind of things. And this would be an actual dialogue we've had at some point, but now they are internalizing that as a part of that self-talk. So choices helps develop that aspect as well, including some of those problem solving, talking our way through any kind of everyday situations or problems. I sometimes like, what would my mom do in a situation like this? I'm sure we've had those inner talk, if you will, and that helps that providing choices helps build that narrative. And the overall cause and effect skills that if I, things such as if I choose carrots now, maybe I can eat cookies later. Having that kind of dinner time conversation, the book reading at my house was, if we read a llama book first, then mommy can choose another book later. Then would flip it. If we read mommy's choice first, then we can read llama book at the end. So it feels choices make a big difference in terms of developing the overall processes for communication. And you can continue to provide these choices throughout the day. It not only just helps with communication, the sense of control of the environment they are in, self-control, and in a way, it's like, yes, it's okay to honor someone's choices. It's okay for someone to choose something that I may not necessarily like. So learning some of those social communication norms help kiddos understand that sometimes we have to do some non-preferred activity. And after that, we may end up with our preferred activity. So all that cause and effect, cooperation, self-respect, and respect for others. So these are all kinds of communication aspects that we can support just by providing them with choices. And I often tell in my sessions that, when yes, we do come across challenging behaviors, but challenging behaviors are often as a result of communication breakdown. Kids may throw a tantrum, or they may kick a chair, or lash out because they may not have adequate communication skills. So some behavior is, in a way, communication as well, or frustration associated with a communication breakdown. So sometimes, providing a choice even amid during those challenging behaviors, such as you can say, do you need 5 minutes to calm down, or do you want to sit in a chair and think about what you're doing, and then we can go play. So giving them those kind of choices during those while they're in midst of those challenging situation can help mitigate some of those aspects as well. And yes, communication is all day, throughout the day, and we can employ a lot of these strategies in just about everything that we do. Well, when you're reading a book, during playing with toys, games, at meal times, there are, kids like digital games, and playing games on iPads and things like that. And there are apps that also support some of those turn taking and communication attempts. And all of them work on, these are the core processes, like joint attention. Joint attention, you may have heard the term, is doing things together. We are attending to the same topic together. So right now, you and I, we are both looking at the screen together and processing the information. That is joint attention. And joint attention is a huge precursor to language and learning later on. And things such as turn taking, labeling things in the environment, that helps build up the vocabulary, answering questions, rhyming. All of these are basic concepts that can be learned very easily with with various communication, providing choices all throughout the day. And these are some games that we have listed there, common games that you can, use at any, with the kiddos, such as headbands, a common game that we, kids enjoy. It's focuses on asking and answering questions, vocabularies, category, and developing strategies to figure out how we can get ahead. Cranium, again, it was it was very popular with my children as well. All of these games that you see, Guess Who works on also building memory, which I think is a very important criteria for overall language and communication. So all of these things, all of these games are all part of, are developed in a way to jumpstart language and communication. And all of this thing is within a context of play. As the lovely Fred Rogers once said that, play is often talked about as if it were a relief from serious learning. But for children, it is serious learning. They learn through play, and play is really the work of the childhood. You can do so many things with within a playful context, mainly not just learning and language, but social communication, learning how to engage with peers, learning how to engage with adults, with the environment, and all the social communication areas that we talked about, turn taking, respecting others' choices. All of that is learned very effectively in a play setting. So here are some of the resources that are listed over there. Lots and lots of information available. The first two are about communication, like making stages of making choices. 30 minutes is really, really very minimal time to go over into the in-depth information. But as you can see, you can get more details here. These are some of those learning website and apps, including the toys and games that you can do this digitally, or even print things out or learn more about that. So that's what I have regarding improving communication. Any questions that I can answer?
And I'm looking in the chat, so if you do have a question, feel free to put that in the chat, and I am happy to read that.
And feel free to reach out anytime. I know things always occur to me at 2 a.m, and I'm like, oh shoot, I should have asked that. So please do reach out. I don't guarantee a response at 2 a.m, but yes, I will get to you the next day.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Mehta, for being here today. You are such a valuable resource that we have here at the Service Center. For everyone that's here today, today's webinar was recorded. It will be posted on the Region 10 website, and I will also send an email either this afternoon or tomorrow that has a link to the slide deck as well, so that you'll have access to all of those links that were shared today. If you have additional questions, SpedTex and Partners Resource Network are always happy to help. And I put those website links into the chat. And at this time, I'm going to ask Ashton to launch our poll. We would love to hear feedback from you today. Thank you again for being here.